This is a video tutorial showing you how I solve Paul Derthick's headline puzzle. Paul Derthick created the headline puzzle in the 1960s when he worked at NSA. It is a cryptogram puzzle with a few extra wrinkles, and so it is worth going through how we might solve one of these problems, one of these puzzles. And to start out with, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the puzzle is created. So it begins with three particular words or sometimes phrases. There's a key, there's a hat, and there's a setting. And these are generally related in some way. The key is any word, so let's say key. The hat is another word, so the key should not have any repeats in it. If there are, we have to remove them, which makes the puzzle much harder to solve. So generally, the keyword will have no repeats in it. The hat should be somewhat longer, and it can have repeats. So let's say the hat as our hat, and the setting must always be 5 characters long, 5 letters, and that's because we're going to be enciphering 5 different headlines. So here I am going to use dials to indicate the knobs that we're using to settle things, to set things. And this can have repeats as well. The key is really the only one that can't. So how do we use the key? We begin by writing out the alphabet with the letters from the keyword moved to the front. So we spell out the keyword, which in this case is key, and then we fill out the rest of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, we skip E, F, G, H, I, J, we skip K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, we skip Y because we already have it, and then Z. And this gives us an initial sequence that we are then going to use the hat to create sort of a grid for. So we're going to use the hat to specify the width of our grid, and we are just going to take this stream and we'll just wrap it around. And so now you see we have 6 columns. The next thing that we do, so here's how we've used the key and the hat so far. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to number the columns according to the alphabetical ordering of the letters in the hat. And our hat in this case is the hat, and obviously the A is the first. So we're going to put a 1 there. The next thing alphabetically is E, so we'll put a 2 there. Next we have H, and we see we have 2 instances of H in our hat, so we're going to do them from left to right. So 3 and then 4. And then we have 2 instances of T, and so we'll number the first one 5 and the last one 6. Okay, so this is giving us numbered columns, and we're going to pull these columns out from this grid in the numerical order. So we start with the column 1, which is BIPV. And let me put spaces between them just to make it a little clearer what's going on. Then 2 is under the E, that is YGNT. Then the one under the 3 is EFMSZ. Under the 4 is AHOU. Under the 5 is KDLRX. And then under the 6 is CJQW. This is assuming I have made no errors in my transcription. So we're going to collapse these all together, but an important thing to note at this point is if we look at some of the rarer letters, we will see, for example, that V, Z, U, X, and W, and T, these are appearing in the same relative positions. They're all sort of at the end of their blocks, and they're spread out. Similarly, we have I, G, F, H, D or L, we're sort of getting a wraparound there, and J, all appearing in roughly the same position. Again, spread out. This is going to be important later, as we'll see when we're solving things. But this gives us a primary or fundamental sequence. So we've used the key and the hat. Well, how do we use the setting? Well, for this, I am going to call this our plaintext ordering. And we are going to have 5 different copies of this. And in fact, I am going to duplicate this sequence on each. It's just going to make my life a little easier. So the way we use the setting is under this first character here, the B, we're going to now align the letters of the setting. So we're going to offset this entire thing so that for headline 1, it's going to begin with a D. For headline 2, it's going to begin with an I. Headline 3 will begin with an A. Headline 4, an L. And then headline 5, an S. And now I'm just going to go and trim the ends of these. And now, to determine the substitutions we're going to use for our headlines, we're going to read from a plaintext character to a ciphertext character, and we're going to go around as a permutation sequence. So we start for headline 1, this is easy to read off from this. We start with B and we go to D. Then from D, we go to M, that's down here. Then under M, we have P. Under P, we have R. R takes us to Z. Z takes us to Y, etc. I'm not going to type the whole thing out. But an important thing to realize here is for any of these, we are skipping forward some number of characters. In this case, let's go backwards. So we're going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the next one will be going back another 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then the next one is 8 before that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we continue around until we get back to B. Sometimes we will have a shorter sequence. So these permutation sequences telling us that a plaintext B goes to D, a plaintext D goes to M, a plaintext M goes to P, etc. Sometimes we have smaller sequences. So we could be in a situation where we go, and I think this one may do that. Is there... This one I don't think exhibits that behavior. Oh, it does actually. So we can see that for headline 3, we're going to get B goes to A, but then A goes right back to B. And so we're going to have 13 two-character sequences where the characters just swap between the plaintext and the ciphertext. That is going to be... You'll see that occasionally. That makes it harder to do, as we will see, but not impossible. And sometimes you'll also get you'll get two 13-character permutation sequences. So because these are all offset by a some amount, for example, B goes to I goes to P, P goes to V, so that's just skipping 1, or B goes to L, then L goes to Z. We can see, again, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that means there's going to be a geometric relationship between each of these sequences that we develop. And we're going to see how that works later. It's going to be pretty neat. But now let's take a look at an actual puzzle. This is one that I set, so I'm cheating a little bit in that I know what the answer is. I don't remember all of it, but this is going to be a good way to sort of show you the techniques. So we're going to start by looking at these headlines. In this case, I know that the headlines, because I said it, are all headlines from recent headlines, at least when I'm making this video, from different continents. So part of it is going to be what continents they're from. And in fact, for this one, that's actually not true. The ones that I set generally as hopefully I'll be able to continue doing them as weekly puzzles. They will be from a different continent. These are not. This is just a simple little example. But we're going to look through them and we're going to find a headline that looks like we can attack it. And actually the fifth headline, it really doesn't matter which we start with. The fifth headline looks good because we have two-letter words, RI and RN, and we see each of them shows up again later. Well, there aren't many two-letter words, pairs of two-letter words that begin with the same letter. And I'm actually going to make a copy of these of this to work on. This is just typically how I do it. But we might guess that these begin with I. If, in, is, it. It could be, an, at, as. So this could have been at and something, but we're never going to have the same letter go to itself. So this can never be an N, because if N maps to N, the way we've constructed it, every letter will be mapping to itself, and it won't really be much of a cryptogram. So we're going to guess I here. It's a good guess. Let me just put in some other stuff, and so we'll have I there, I there, I there, and I there. There are cryptogram solvers online that might help you with some of this. So now we have to figure out what we think this might be. So it could be in it, is it, it is. Here we want to then look at letter frequencies for the I and the N in the ciphertext. So we see I shows up here, and it shows up here and here. That's a fair number of those. N we see 1, 2, 3, 4 instances of. So both of these are common. So let's guess that it is. Okay, so now we just go through and replace all the I's with T's. And when I say replace, I typically don't actually, as you can see, cover them up. Actually replace them. I just write it below it so I can sort of see what's going on. And I can change my mind. And this doesn't look too bad because we have an ST combination. But now we have to start looking at what else we have. Double letters are a good place to look. This one doesn't have any double letters. But we do have some letters that are repeated with something between them. So DED and QXQ. Now, when we see things like this, um, a reasonable first thing to look at, to consider, is E blank E. So ERE, ESE, ETE, ELE. Those are fairly common. So if we can see, for example, a word that we think might fit here with E blank EI blank ST, let's just take a look at that. And I'm not seeing anything that looks, particularly appealing there. We could try other things. We can't use T, obviously, because we've already assigned that to I. But T blank T shows up fairly frequently. S blank S shows up a lot. L blank L. We have other vowels. It could be A blank A or O blank O. But let's keep trying with E. And if we look at D, we see that D appears 2, 3, 4 times. So as many times as S, not quite as many as T, but it's a very common letter, so that gives us an indication we might want to try an E here. Okay, so that is all of the E's. Note the punctuation as well. We don't know at the moment if this is ending a sentence, which sometimes happens in headlines, or if it's an abbreviation. But now let's take a look at what else we see here. We see Q appearing just before a T, and we see a couple Q's here as well. One of them appearing before an I, the other at the beginning of a word. So we have to think now, well, what makes sense? Could this be F? FTE, that's not bad. RTE, but we have to keep in mind that something has to work here as well. Let's actually try an A, because A, it's a vowel, it's very versatile. And we're not quite sure yet what that first word is, but we're seeing something that's starting to look like a word taking form. And let's give this a try. Let's just guess that this is against. And does X appear anywhere else? I'm not seeing one. So that's a, G is not an uncommon letter, but it's not terribly common. What about M? What about M? I'm not seeing M a lot either. So I don't see it anywhere else. So this isn't really going to give us a lot to work on, a lot to go on. But we're putting words together, and we're starting to get things that are starting to look like meaningful sequences of words. So blank it is, blank blank is against it. And here we might sort of, just based on the context we get from the contents of what we think we've decrypted so far, deciphered, we might guess that this ends in ever. We don't have any other E's in our ciphertexts, so that really doesn't help us. But V we should have, because R is a common letter. And so we're seeing something here. We're not getting a heck of a lot yet, but we can see this is looking like whatever. So let's try that. So we don't have any other P's in the ciphertext. And then the U, again, we don't have any other U's. So now we have to start thinking of what this might be. And for this, typically when we're going with a headline, it's recent news. We should have some understanding of what's going on in the world. And we can start trying to kind of intuit things from this. Now, this isn't actual headlines. These are headlines that I made up. And I made them up for a particular theme, as we are going to see. And so I might know that there was a recent election in Fredonia, and that there was a President Firefly elected recently. Replace a prominent figure as appropriate. So again, it's assumed to be something from the news, and you might start to see a theme. So whatever it is, President Firefly is against it. So now we have to find another one. And admittedly, the ending of that particular one did require some knowledge of what would be likely headlines. So we now have one of our 5 headlines. I'm just going to copy this back up to here. This is just an organizational thing I like to do. I'm also going to put in the things that we're trying to retrieve so that in this little block of text in my file, I will have the headlines deciphered as well as the key, the hat, and the setting. And we're actually going to find them. Let me put them in the order that we're going to actually recover them, because we're going to find the setting first, as it turns out. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do with this is we are going to put together our permutation sequence. And so what we have here is we have that a plaintext W goes to a P. That's what we get from the first character. But a P becomes a C. We don't have a C in our plaintext, so we have to stop now. So then we go from H to U. And again, we don't have a U. A goes to Q. We don't have a Q in our plaintext. T goes to I. And I goes to R. And R goes to V. We also have V in our plaintext, and that goes to E. E now goes to D. And our chain stops there. So we have all the letters from whatever and it. So now we have to fill out is. So S is going to go to N. N is going to go to M. And again, we run into a dead end. We already have P, R, E, S. Do we have F? No, we don't have F yet. So F goes to Z. That chain ends quickly. We have R, I, E, F. We don't have L yet, do we? So L goes to K. And our chain ends there. And then Y goes to J. We're also going to see G go to X. And I believe that covers everything we have. So we have all these little fragments. And we're going to be stitching them together eventually. So how many letters do we have in our fragments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So there's 2 letters we have not seen for this first headline. So now I'm going to split this so that I can keep this information up top while we work. We need to figure out what headline to attack next. So we don't have a a lot of short words here. We do have a 2 followed by a 3. We only have one 2-letter word here. But we do have some double letters. So we have ZZ and we have LL. And we have some repetition. We have TPL, TYP. That's actually a lot of repeated characters. So let's take a look at that. So I'm now going to copy headline 3. And let's attack that one. And I'm just going to go in and put in my punctuation and numbers. So we're counting something. So this could be an S, because it's certainly plural. So 15 somethings, but this is going to require this T to be duplicated as well. And here, again, remember that we're talking about headlines. Can we think of any words that have this sort of repetition? So, A, B, C, A, D, B. We can actually look for things of this form. There are tools to search for things that have particular forms in words. Or we could take a guess. So if we try to put that S where all these P's go, we're seeing this. We're seeing words that end in S. This is fairly common. That's another one you would want to look for. But a lot of them are plural, and having 2 4-letter words ending in S in a row, that might be a little less common. So let's try something else. Because there is a plural that does not end in S that has this form, and that is people. So it's a plural. It's something that we'd be likely to see in headlines. So again, instead of S, we're going to replace those P's with E's. And now we can go, and because this is more likely, I'll keep this just in case we want to go back to it, but I'm going to move the line with people closer. So I will frequently keep multiple lines like this as I'm working on a headline and sort of experimenting with different possibilities. So here we're just going to see, is this consistent with people? So we're going to look for more T's. I don't see more T's in the ciphertext. What about L's? So we do see some more L's. So we'll replace those L's with O's. Oops, I missed one. And a nice piece of confirming information we see is that we had a double L, and double O is extremely common. Okay, so now what do we do next? We can think about what other... Well, we've got this double Z here. This is a great place to look next. So O, and then 2 blanks. And I'm going to copy this line again. because, again, we're going to make some guesses and we'll see where it gets us. Double S, pretty common. So let's give that a try. And so we put S's there. And not getting, not sure what exactly this first word what might be. Floss, cross, dross, gross. There's a fair amount of things that could go there. Let's look at this last word, though, because we have this double O. And we know there's very likely to be a consonant between the E and the double O. So we have S blank, S, then another letter, let's call it X, then a third letter, and then X repeating. So whatever this S maps to. So S something, something else, that first something again, E blank, OO blank. Well, what do we think this might be? This could be a vowel. So the vowels we have left to us are A, I, and U. So do we think SI blank IE blank OO blank is good, or SU blank UE? That one's even less likely. So we probably aren't going with the vowel there. So what consonants do we think might come after S? H, P, and T are all good options. So SH blank HE blank OO blank. I can't think of anything that really has SH blank H E in it. How about SP, SP, something PE, spape, spipe, spoop. Yeah, nothing I can think of. So let's try T. I mean, ST is pretty common. And this is starting to look like a real word. So let's see if that T works well for us elsewhere. So I'm looking for S's. And we're really not finding many. It's odd to have this few T's in something, but it's not unheard of. With the vowels that we have left, A looks like it would fit well there, so R would then be A. This is nice because that appears before a T in a place where we would expect a vowel. Not seeing any others unless I've just missed them. And, well, we're starting to see something that looks, again, like a real word. Stateroom. So let's try M goes to R. And that's all of those. And then H goes to M. And we only have one of those. So we can start taking guesses. We can start with, well, let's see, are we going to get much bang for our buck by figuring this out, this letter out, the E? E only appears in a couple places, but it appears here and here. So just sort of going through what that could be. Bros, not a word. Cross, C blank, S blank blank, C blank E. Maybe. Hard to say. Let's say, so D, dross. Dross is probably not going to appear in headlines. Frost or froze, gross. So gross might work. HIJKLMNOP. We've used some of these. I'm just going through QRSTUV. But yeah, gross seems like it is the best fit here. And so what might, if we have an adjective appearing before stateroom, fitting this pattern, what might it be? We're going to need some vowel in here. Well, how about single? So let's try that now. So N is going to become I. O is going to become N. This is nice because we now have a word that makes sense, in. Where else do we have O's? Okay, and then Y is going to be L. Do we have any Y's? We do. Okay, and okay, now we're seeing there's not much else that this word could be. It's going to be violation. That doesn't get us much in terms of decrypting the headline because we don't have any other W's. So what kind of violation, gross violation, 15 people, something, single stateroom, good guess is this is a fire code. And that gets us that. And that gets us that C is D. And then we can just fill this out as found. So gross fire code violation, 15 people found in single stateroom. And that is headline 3. I'm going to delete these 2 lines because we don't need them. And now I'm going to put together the sequences here. And after this, things are going to get simpler. We're going to start seeing some magic. So G goes to E, E goes to P goes to T, which goes to S, which goes to Z, and it sort of ends there. R goes to M goes to H, and it looks like that peters out there. O goes to L goes to Y, and we end there. We already had S. F goes to G, so we're just going to put the F at the beginning of that one. Do we have an I yet? No, but I goes to N, and N goes to O. So that's lengthening that sequence. C goes to, did I get R goes to M, E goes to P? Yeah, C goes to I, so I'll just stick that in there. We already have O. D goes to C, so we'll just put that in the beginning there. E goes to P. V goes to W. There's a reason I am putting all of these together. It will become clear soon. I-O-L-A. A goes to R. T goes to S. I-O-N. P-E-O-P-L-E. F-O-U goes to B. D goes to C. In S-I-N. G goes to E. We already have that one. L goes to Y. E-P, S-T-A-T-E. R-O-O-M. Okay, so we've gotten what we're going to get from that. So now, so now we're going to take advantage of the fact that these are pieces of permutation sequences. We just haven't been able to stitch them together yet. But remember, all of those permutation sequences are skipping every some number of letters rotating around in our fundamental sequence. But that means they're doing the same thing relative to each other. And that's going to let us do something kind of neat. So I'm going to start with this piece of the sequence, FGEP TSZ, and I am going to look for those letters in headline 5's sequences. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange these vertically. So we're going to form a two-dimensional structure. So after F comes Z. So I'm going to put that underneath the F. And here I think what I'm going to need to do is go down to here so I have all these visible to me. My cursor somewhere where it's not going to be in my way. G, we can see, goes to X. E goes to D. P, we don't actually seem to have. Oh, no, we do. P goes to C. T goes to I. S goes to N. And Z, we don't know what it goes to. But this will become a little bit more obvious if I fill out some of these things going forward. So we have TI. We can continue going. R, V, E, D. S goes to M, or N goes to M rather. And we can see that we have R goes to M. So what we're doing is we are stitching things together. So in particular, we can see we have ARMH, and that's now connected things between these. We've also seen that we have ZXDCIN. Well, we see where DCIN is, and we see where Z is, so we've found another letter in the sequence, and we've stitched something together further. So this is a really nice technique. We can also use this to extend things in this sequence, in our first sequence. But let's try to keep going with this. We have V here, and we know for headline 3 that's followed by a W. Have we seen? We have not seen U or B yet, but W is followed by P and C in headline 5. So again, we put those vertically. And have we learned anything from this? Not quite yet. But we do know that H is followed by U. So we put a U under the H, and now we can see that W connects to U. Furthermore, this continues with a B. And we are slowly putting things together. And we can go and say, so we have EP, TSZ, so just continuing this sequence here. And now we can see we have HU, HUT, so we can now stitch H and U. Oops. There, and we can see what else we've managed to stitch together. Have we managed to get, we know B goes to S. We didn't seem to have B elsewhere. SNM, WP, SNM, WPC. we get from this. This is what we started with. And we can work our way upwards and downwards as well. But let's see, we're trying to get this we know should have an F because F comes before Z. And that is now telling us here that B is followed by F. Well, that's good. Because we're doing a great job now of filling this out. We'd like to know what comes after Y. So CIN, we've now learned that that ends with OLY. And this is XDCINOLY. And we can see that there's these shifts. So the Y goes back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we go back 6 from here, we should find another Y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we've learned that the Y comes before the A. And we can see how many of the letters we've gotten at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We are still missing some letters. But can we get them from, are they letters that we have up here? And they may well be. For example, I don't see J in here. We do have G. Do we have Q? We don't have Q yet, so that's a couple of them. So now I'm going to just take this and I am going to rebuild this. Because I know if I advance this by 6, I get the same thing that I had. F goes to Z, F goes to Z. And I can do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I can start looking for ways to fill this in from this information. So we have what are things that we're looking for? So we're looking for what L transforms to. Looks like that goes to K. Y goes to J. A goes to Q. And then R goes back to V. So we have a complete cycle. So K, J, Q. So this is now a sequence that we are going to use to attack all 3 remaining headlines. So this is where stuff gets cool. We can do these in any order we like. So let's start with headline 1. Because this pattern applies between any 2 permutation sequences. So here's the way I typically do it. I look for a short word. Let's try ZV. And I'm actually going to put this in twice. And I am going to mark that I have a V and a Z. These are the letters that are interesting to me. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the offset. Obviously, VZ is, was it VZ we're looking for? ZV is what we're looking for. ZV is not a word. But if I push this forward, is SQ a word? No. TJ? No. PK? No. EH? But it's not going to be in a headline. GM? Not likely. FR? No. BA? highly unlikely. We might come back to that if we think we're looking at something about college degrees. UY, not likely. WL, no. VO, no. Now you see why I extended this, because we're going to have to grab this Z. QN, no. JI, no. KC, HD, unlikely. MX, not likely. RZ, AS, as. Huh. That's a definite possibility. So, let's suppose that V, let me put my punctuation in here, that V gives us S. I don't see any other V's in there. And Z gives us A. Right, so we're looking for Z's. Not a big deal if I miss one, because we'll pick it up when we're filling things in later. Okay. Doesn't look bad. Let's see what we get for actually, let's I'm going to put the full ciphertext up here. So we're reading the wrong direction here. We're going from ciphertext plain text, which is frankly easier to look up at this stage. But we see T goes to L. And at this point, we're just looking to make sure everything still makes sense. We can abandon it at any point. And no, that's all we got from that. X goes to R. So it's looking good so far. Okay, H goes to G. Do I see more H's? Not off the top of my head. K goes to E. E's we should have plenty of. And then a ciphertext E becomes N. That is here. And at this point, as it's starting to look more credible, we're just filling things in. This is the, like I said, this is where it becomes easy. So G becomes I. And this would take me a little bit longer, but not much at this point, certainly, if I didn't already know what these were. So D becomes M. And I don't remember exactly what phrasing I used for everything. L, here we go. V. Do we see any other L's? Not off the top of my head. I'm not expecting them. I missed a K. Q becomes T. So we're expecting to see more of those. J becomes P. I'm just going to assume there aren't more of those. F becomes C. I becomes K. B becomes, there we go, D. I happen to see that there's one there. Now we get to the Y, and that's a W. And we only have 2 letters left. A becomes U, and C becomes H. And we get large animal veterinarian picked as new sanitarium head. So again, we're just going to move on to the next one and do the same thing. So we're going to start with our sequence, and we're going to look for a word. Here we only have one short word, and that's not even that short. It's 4 letters. But hopefully that will make things stand out even more. So we're looking for B, A, N, and R. B, N, A, R. And I'm not even going to put together the sequences for these, the V, L, W, Y, U, A, and stitching them all together. This is at this point just let's get it done. So B-N-A-R, or so B-A-N-R is the order we want. So U-Y, no. W-L, no. V-O-D-L. Doesn't sound particularly promising. QN, we're going to reject that immediately. J-I-Z, no. KC, no, we're going to reject that one. HD, going to reject that as the start of a 4-letter word. MX, no. RZ, AS, ASGZ, no, that's not. YT, we're going to skip that one. LP, no. Remember, this is beginning a 4-letter word. So OE, OEU, no, we're going to reject that. NG, W, no, that's not going to work for us. IF, VG, no. CBQ, no, we're going to reject that one. DU, JB, no. XW, no. ZV, no. SQ, we're going to reject that. TJ, nope. PK, no. EH, YK, no. GM, LH, no, that doesn't sound good. FROM. Oh, that one sounds good. Right, so we're going to say BANR, FROM. Great. Let's just read this upwards. It's easy enough to do. So let's start. Well, let's look for more B's. Yeah, there's another B. A. We should see A a fair amount because R is a common letter. Sorry, I've been doing these lowercase, so let's stick with lowercase. Then N's. We should see some of those. O's not that uncommon. We're not seeing a lot of them. And then R's, yeah, we're not seeing more of those. Okay, so what is D map to? So again, remember we're reading upwards now. So D goes to C. And then Y, we read upwards to get to A. Then E is P. P is T. C is I. I is N. And we're seeing words and parts of words. T is going to be S. W is U. O is L. X is D. F is G. G is E. It feels like we should have had that one before, but nope, that's the first time we're hitting that. And then Z is X. So Captain Spaulding returns from African explorations. Some of you have no doubt spotted the pattern in the headlines. The headlines do not typically themselves have patterns to them. But you might be getting an idea of what types of things to look for the key, hat, and setting. But again, those are, while the key, hat, and setting are related to one another, they're not generally related to the headlines. We have another two-letter word here. In fact, if we look at this, did we see NB before? No, we didn't. For some reason I thought that looked familiar. But let's do NB. Please note the way that I'm doing this is absolutely not the only way you can do this. This is just what has worked for me. IU, CW, DV, XQ, ZJ, SK, TH. TH is a great combination, but not as a single word. PM. PM maybe? We can remember that one to come back to if nothing else works. ER, GA, FY, BL, UO, WN, VI, QC, JD, KX, HZ, MS, another possibility to come back to, RT, AP, YE, LG, OF. Okay, we finally hit a word. Of. So we hit a word, let's give it a try. And again, why did I capitalize that? Okay. And then B, hey, we have another F. In fact, we have a bunch. This might cause us some concern. Double F, it's not unheard of. Okay. So, again, reading upwards, the E gives us P. And I don't see any others. A gives us R. G gives us E. So we like seeing a lot of those. T, which is going to be a double letter, is S. That's good, and we even get a full word out of this, professor. And this double F doesn't necessarily bother us as much because this is probably a name. So V becomes W. Do we have more V's? I don't see one off the top of my head. Y is A. F is G. P is T. H is K. And I'm only going to look ahead for letters that I've either noticed or are common. M is H. And I noticed that there was an M there, so I'll just go right to that. I see a number of O's. So O is L. This is looking good because we have a professor and we have something that looks like it's going to be college. R is M. W is U. Z is X. L is Y. And then finally, D is indeed C. Professor Wagstaff takes helm of Huxley College. There, and we've got all 5 of our headlines. Large animal veterinarian picked as new sanitarium head. Captain Spaulding returns from African explorations. Gross fire code violation, 15 people found in single stateroom. Professor Wagstaff takes helm of Huxley College. And whatever it is, Prez Firefly is against it. So some of you, no doubt, will get at least some of those references. But the thing that we do now, so we've got all of our headlines. Now the remainder of the puzzle is finding the setting, the key, and the hat. The things that were used to generate these. And again, those 3 are going to be related to each other. So I'm going to start by taking this, and I'm going to call that P. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through for each of our 5 headlines and say, what does a plain text V become? And I've got all the information up here, so I can see a plain text V becomes an L. So the first thing I'm going to do is make copies of this, and we know a V is going to become, a plain text V becomes an L, so plain text W becomes a Y, and we see that is indeed the case. For 2, we don't have a V. Do we have a W? We don't have a W. Do we have a U? Yes. So U becomes W. And that's our third character. I did that wrong. So we see a U. Plaintext U becomes a W. Plaintext U becomes a W. For 3, do we have a V? We do. V becomes W. That's easy. For 4, we don't have a V. We do have a W. A W becomes a V. So here, I'm just going to, I can see that just shifts it over by 1. And we know Q is the end of the sequence. Note, these are the same. And then for 5, V becomes E. So plaintext V becomes ciphertext E. And I am going to just trim these, not for any particularly exciting reason. But now, what we're doing is we're reversing what was done before. And the setting was the last thing we used. And remember, the setting is a 5-letter word. So we're going to look down these for a 5-letter word. It's clearly not going to be LQWQE or YVU, etc. AWBWT, no. RUFUS. You know, that's a possibility. It's a name, Rufus. We can keep looking and see if there's anything else that looks plausible. MBG, no. HFE, no. KG, no. JETEC, nope. QP, no. VT, nope. UZBX, FD, GC, EIOIM, nope. PNL, no. TOYOK, nope. SLALJ, no, that doesn't look like anything. ZYR, no. XAMAV, no. DRH, no. CMIHJ, NKQ, no. Nope, so it looks like our setting is indeed Rufus. So we're going to go make note of that. Now remember, when we constructed our grid, this setting told us the beginning was lined up with the beginning of the fundamental sequence. So what I'm going to do now, so what we've learned here is that the fundamental sequence begins with a B because that's what's above Rufus. So now I'm going to take this but the thing is, this may not be the fundamental sequence. It might be, but it might not be. In fact, we can take a look at it. We see Z and X are close to each other. V and W are close to each other. Whereas, again, we want them to be spread out more generally. S and T are close to each other. So this is probably not the sequence. And you'll note that I have this terminal open. That's because one of the tools I have does this next piece for me. So what we're doing is we're saying we have this starting sequence. Our fundamental sequence might be this, or it might be take every, skip 3 and go through it. So we go B to E to S to D, etc. And then 5, 7, 9, and 11 If we go past that to 13, we're just reversing this sequence and then getting all of these in reversed orders. We don't do the even ones. You can take a look at what the even skips would do and perhaps convince yourself of why we don't do that. But these are now our candidates, keeping in mind that our actual principal sequence, our fundamental sequence, might be one of these reversed. Because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to recover these columns, which is going to give us the key and the length of the hat. So now we have to figure out which one of these looks most appealing. So let's look at, so we already took a look at 1 and we saw a lot of nearby letters in the alphabet that were near each other in this sequence. Looking at 3, we see J and W, P and Z, so that's a little far, but T and X, K and V, K and V and J and W, this is not necessarily bad because J and K are close to each other, V and W are close to each other. They're in the wrong order though. So let's pull this one out as something that looks like it's worth taking a closer look at. What's around Z? G and N are near Z. What about V? Where is V? Oh, V is pretty close to G, so probably not. Unless one of them is in the keyword. Because remember, those get brought up to the front. H and W, G and Z, that's actually not bad. E and X, so this is a possibility as well. At this point, I do know what the key and hat are, but I don't know which one of these is correct. B, Z, L, how about W, R, W, T, A, V, P, what are I and J near? So I is near P and M, J is near L and G. Not terrible either. What about 9? I'm looking for ones that we can just dismiss. YWZ, I'm going to dismiss that one out of hand. V and X, I don't really like seeing those close to each other. BI and EL, maybe? KT or DKT. This one looks pretty good. I'm actually going to start with this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking for actually, I've changed my mind about this one. Just looking at the way it starts, it's either going to start or end with a B. And I really don't like this QZ close to each other. BZ or BHN. What about C? CEQ or CRW. Not liking that one either. How about this one? So we have ZN or GZ or CY or HW or EW, NZ. I might like this first one best. Number 3. FPZ MJW. No, actually, I don't like that one. What about in the other order? Uh, O, no, CZ. No, I actually don't like that one. This is where obviously it's getting tougher again. MOX. Yeah, I'm looking for things that look good. AV or yeah, AV, FX, RW. Not great. But a BHN. And then JLZ. Those are really a little too. I don't like the N and Z being close to each other. Maybe this is the best one to look at. But it really doesn't feel like it. Yeah, that can't possibly be it. Is it one that I rejected? 9 is the only one. BDM or BRX. AZ or UAZ or no, that really does look bad. The thing is, I do know what the key is. So JW. See, J and P are just too close. F and C are in the wrong order. WH, but H comes after. So EW, N. There's a lot of letters in there. LZ. T, no, T still comes. BZ. RW, no. I really don't like any of these. Was I too quick to dismiss this one? No, because the V and W next to each other are pretty bad. So I am throwing myself for a loop here. So let's just try. Let's try this one. And I'm going to guess, given that it's B and Z right next to each other, that this is actually backwards. So I'm looking to split things in some way. So let's try JL, Z as one column. I mean, AD, G is looking pretty bad, quite honestly. I, P, V. No, that's not looking good. But yeah, I really don't like that. And that was 7. Let's try 3. This is very much trial and error. You know, this is actually starting to look not too bad. W comes before Y, so M, J, W, FPZ. This is actually looking pretty good. We're seeing some stuff that looks like it's in alphabetical order. Let's try RKV. Except I really don't like these long strings. I don't like anything about this IL, and we should not be seeing E after F unless this is all part of the keyword. But it's possible I have broken things up badly. And I did get the correct start, right? Yes. What if I really like FPZ and MJW here? Let me punt on that and try this next one. No, I'm actually not liking that one. If I go back to this, which I thought was reversed. No. I am oddly stumped on this. For expedience, I am going to use the special knowledge I have of what the actual key is and figure out which one of these is correct. Okay, I believe it's this one, which we've already looked at, but I'll just put this down here again. And which direction is it going? This feels like too many sequences to me. Let's see, where was the W? There. And the Y. Okay, so we've got, I am going to uppercase the ones that I have used just to keep track. Okay. And what goes, okay, so we have MU, where U comes before V. Now, now that can't possibly be right. This is odd because it's getting close, but I can see it's wrong. So it is not that one. I'm going to cheat and go backwards because I happen to know that the key is marks. Not typically how I would do this. So I am looking for one of these that has M next to E, and it's 11. That is probably the only one. And that is not the one that we were just working with. Right, so it is this one. So I am going to guess that that is a splitting. U comes before Z, so M, E, L, U. And here we see B, then C, I, then J, Q, then S. This is all looking good. W goes in here, so R, G, O, W. This is a part that can take a while, which is why I'm cheating for the sake of this video. And then X, H, P, Y. Okay, so we have the key is marks with a little bit of cheating. Now, if we consider the way that we put the sequence together, we put the sequence together with the first column, the alphabetically first column, alphabetically second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So now we're going to go through and number these accordingly. So M was the second column, A was the sixth. I'm just looking at the first character in them. R was the fourth. X is the seventh. B is the first. C is the third. And D is the fifth. So this gives us the shape of our hat. We are looking for a 7-character word or sometimes phrase with this pattern. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this. One is we can cheat with a word list. that I have put together for my own benefit. But that'll only work if it's a single word that is found in this list. So I can grep for this. So grep is a standard Unix tool. And I'm going to use an extended regular expression. And we do find some things that match this pattern. None of them really feel right. So we can't just say, okay, it's contain. So it's Rufus, Marx, and contain. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something that is satisfying for this theme. Well, so for this, it helps to know something about the setter. And as you might have guessed from the headlines, and from the key and the setting that we've obtained, I'm a bit of a Marx Brothers fan. And Rufus T. Firefly was a character played by Groucho. Groucho's the right number of letters. Well, let's see. Alphabetically first in there is the C. D, E, F, G. Then H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. P, Q, R, S, T, U. And so that gives us a fair amount of confidence that the key, hat, and setting were Marx, Groucho, and Rufus, a character he played, or the character he played in the movie Duck Soup. Finding the hat can be a painstaking process. Here, again, cheating a little bit, but also seeing Rufus and Marx and knowing something about the works of the Marx Brothers, I was able to come up with the hat Groucho. So I hope you found that useful for solving headline puzzles yourself. So I'm going to try to post one on a weekly basis. And it looks like my camera is sort of going funny. I did not see that before. Hopefully that's not too horrifying. I think it's because the sun is getting lower in the sky and is shining more directly on me. So good luck with your headline puzzle decryptions in the future.